so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, where we are firmly convinced that creating success and happiness is rooted in understanding the ultimate nature of reality and the fact that as human beings, we are all immensely powerful fractals of the one and only source consciousness, which creates and animates all things. Now, of course, understanding this powerful truth is one thing. Applying this incredibly empowering wisdom to everyday life? Well, that's another, which is exactly why we provide you with a fresh serving of soul food for thought 5 days a week to help constantly remind you of what matters most. You are it. And I'm your host, Brandon Beecham. I'm the reflection and extension of you who will be here each Wednesday interviewing a different consciousness changemaker. And on the other 4 weekdays, leading the way to ensure that your perspective is consistently expanded, your vibration is constantly elevated, and your heart is overflowing and full. Also, this episode of the Positive Head Podcast is being brought to you thanks to the support of Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online, and you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. All right, all you positive heads. On this week's interview episode, I'm very happy to have David Sanipass here with me on the show. David is a storyteller and elder of the Mi'kmaq Native community who acts as an archive for what is referred to as the Star Teachings. Hello there, David. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Good morning. How are you this fine morning?
Oh, I'm doing super well. Very excited to have you on. Ever since my good friend, our good friend, mutual friend, Matt Belair, who does the Matt Belair podcast, I was talking to not so long ago, and he was like, you've got to have David on. He has some incredible information to share, and here we are, and just grateful to have you. I do have a question I'd like to open up with and ask everyone right out of the gate. You're in an elevator. The guy next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
My passion is understanding what kindness is in this world, in this universe. Balances out to love. I understand what love is, but I think what kindness is to everyone. And that kindness is a commonality, vibration through all the nations and non-natives in this world. So that is my passion, is to spread kindness.
That's a good passion. Kindness is, I always, I've bragged for a long time now. When my son was in elementary, I want to say like 6th grade or so, he won the kindness award and got a kind t-shirt. And that was like one of my proudest Papa moments because, what better to be recognized for than being kind?
That is awesome. That's a good way to know that you're a good father.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I can take all the credit. He came out that way, but maybe I had some influence. So, David, why don't we start with a little background on you? You have a really fascinating story. Your birth was prophesized. Is that correct?
Yes, it was. That's a hard story to tell because most people that are living don't know that until they're really passed away. I mean, it's like there's several people that have been prophesied, but my tribe calls me a living prophecy. Wow.
Well, I'd love to hear what that entails and sort of, maybe you just give us a little background on yourself.
Excellent. In our tradition of storytelling, usually that we want to tell our stories around the fire of light, and usually that was done in a campfire. And usually, most of the time that I ever speak is in the Longhouse, and that's where all these stories come from. The Longhouse stories. I ask people out there is if they have a candle, a white candle, set the white candle on the coffee table. Be safe about it, but set a candle down or light a candle while I'm speaking. And what that does, it brings the vibration around you and these stories to life and to light, and that's what that's from.
Wow, what a beautiful idea.
My name is David Lonebear Sanipass. I'm from the Mi'kmaq Nation. My father and mother was Joseph and Mary, and they were from the Mi'kmaq Nation, and I was born in the sign of Scorpio, and that prophecy was 300 years ago. That was prophesied that this teacher would be born on a certain date, and that was kept a secret for a long time. During the 1800s, it was kept a secret because they didn't want powers to be to go kill the baby, because the powers to be at that time, of course, was the religion and other, I would say, other forms of spiritual movements out there, and they were looking for people that was being born in prophecy to change the world. And my date of my birth was changed, so the other elders wouldn't know exactly when I was born. So I'm from my age. I'm 5 years younger than I am, so they wouldn't find me. Yep. So my birth was prophesized, and when what happened, my mom and dad left the reserve so I can be born, but they went back after 6 or 7 months, and I stayed there until I was very young. And there was a controversy going on at that time with the religions coming into the reserves, and that people at the time were getting rid of medicine men and anybody that had any organized energy or organized power for the people, and they were getting rid of them and displacing our people. They were taking young kids away from the family and putting them into boarding homes and boarding schools, so we could not be organized. And they snuck me out of the reserve. And when I went out of the reserve, I went to a mountain far away, and I stayed there 27 years, learning the teachings, the star teachings, and being in with my family and growing up. I grew up in West Chapman, Maine. That's near the Lonebear Mountains. Stayed there for many of years. Grew up, went to school, went to high school, college, and all that other stuff, and had a family and traveled around for a little bit, and ended up coming to a couple of the, I would say, ceremonies, and being recognized in the ceremony who I was, and start traveling and start teaching among our people, all the reserves of Canada and the United States when I was very young. Traveled quite a lot. And taught, and really didn't take on. The teachings didn't really catch on at the time, but I still taught, and ended up leaving the Presque Isle for quite a long time. That's where I'm originally from, and traveling and just being myself. And several years ago, about 5 or 6 years ago, that Spirit came to me and asked me to start bringing these teachings to the non-natives, and I've been doing that ever since through the Star Teachings, and that is what I'm doing now. And one of the reasons why I'm talking to you today is that you were recommended that you can bring these teachings to the masses, and this is why I'm here today, to speak with you and the community that's going to be listening.
Wow. Well, I look forward to digging in and hearing more about these teachings. And, one of the questions that I have for you, though, in regards to, your unusual circumstances of your birth and growing up was this something that you knew, like, okay, it was being told to you from a young age, like, you're here to teach? And was this, or was it something, what was your young childhood like? I know, I remember hearing something about you were able to see, interdimensional beings or angelic entities and so forth as a child. I remember hearing that in Matt's show. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah. Growing up, I didn't go to a Christian school. I didn't go to any church like that. My mom and my grandparents realized that I needed to do something else to understand what that was. And I had elders that came to me that helped me to develop the sight and hearing, and to take that cloak of non-belief up to see what I was really seeing. I always had, I don't want to call it a gift. Everybody has it, but they don't realize it. To be able to see, I would say, spirit, and to hear spirit. And it's, I've been doing that all my life. When I was very young, that I was took from my parents and brought into a foster home for 3.5 years. And they brought me into a Christian community and cut my hair. And then, of course, I was beaten and everything else. And so I wouldn't use my language, but I read the Bible in my language and tried to figure what the Bible was, and read the Bible and spoke in my own language, and they didn't take that from me. I finally was rescued by my parents and brought back to the mountain, and that sight, I still have it today and still here. Everybody thinks it's a gift, but sometimes it's a hindrance, because our world, what we are in now, of non-belief, all the technology that we have and everything that we have, we still don't believe. It's hard. We go through all these different ceremonies and to be able to come up with the third eye, but still we haven't reached to that point that we can actually see. The way that you can find out that you can actually see the information that you receive, you should be able to take this information to the community and do something with it. We talk about peace. But we don't have peace. But there's thousands of books are written about peace. People talk about peace on earth and everything else, and they don't have peace of mind. We talk about love. Is there love out there? I'm sure there's some sort of energy there, but we have not really proven that. Love is really like a glass rose. It breaks really easy. But that sight that supposedly that I have, and I know that in our communities that people, I do have my hearsayers. I have a whole fan club out there that thinks I'm nuts and crazy. But what do you call nuts and crazy? That is things that other people don't see, and that's it.
Right.
And usually my predictions and my prophecy predictions I haven't had any wrong. It's been 101% right every time. I'm a mathematician too, a spiritual mathematician. I've talked to other mathematicians about what's been going on in the world, and there's people that use my numbers for different things. So, and that's kind of where it goes, is that I guess I'm in that world of in between, that black and white.
Right.
And that black and white is right on that merge of when white turns black and black turns white. And that's a hard place to be, because it's not a popular place, because when you see people out there talking about mystic things and UFOs and stuff like that, the teachers that I've sat with, they kind of inverse me into what was really going on. If there are what you want to call aliens out there, or aliens among us, of course they are. Well, why wouldn't they be? But most of us is that, show me the proof. Show me what's going on here in the world. Tell me what's going on. Show me the UFO. Bring me to the UFO. Bring me to the lights. And I get a lot of that. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, I'm curious about that. I would like to delve in a little bit more to that. But one of the things that you mentioned that kind of jumped out at me, you said you've made a lot of prophecies, and they've all been right, which is pretty phenomenal, because, my own firsthand experience with seeing people with intuitive gifts is it's not sort of an exact science, right? It's like sometimes they get things that are right, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes the filter of their mind is sort of, interfering. I always love it when people who are skeptics say, okay, well, if you're psychic, tell me what number I'm thinking of. It's like, it's not really an exact science like that, right? It's this very nuanced nuanced, subtle energy and of course coming through all kinds of filters, including our own mind. And so it's not quite, it doesn't quite work like that. So the fact that you've had a lot of prophecies and they've all come true, I'm curious to learn a little bit more about that and what some of those prophecies were or are.
Prophecies is a spiritual science. Yes, you can predict them with accuracy, but a lot of people don't know what information they're getting from. So,
Right.
You can pretty well predict anybody's prophecy if they have a job, right? You know where they're going to be next Friday, within at least 75%. So people don't realize that. It's like, okay, what's going to happen between now and next Friday to this person? We're talking about individual here first. We're talking about individual. So out of at least that week, you can pretty well figure out where that person's going to be every day. And from there, if you got a starting point and end point, it's easy to do the numbers there because then you have different numbers assigned to different values. The value of a car, value of eating, the value of health, the value of being spiritual, value of drinking. I mean, there's a lot of variables there to look at. Just like in prophecy, that prophecy is not all doom and gloom. We look at prophecy and, oh my goodness, the earth is going to end and things. Of course it's going to end. I don't have I do have a prediction when this earth is going to end, but it's not what people really think. It's like, we're not going to blow each other up and things like that. Well, we have not did that yet, but I know the starting point for where we're going, and I kind of know the end point where we're going too, because there's different things out there that we can pinpoint. We can pinpoint disasters, of course, but most people that predict things don't predict happy things, because we want to believe in, the doom and gloom and everything else, but what you do, everybody's wrong, and we all turn out to be happy. And then there's a value to that too. There's a value to what we're doing. Just right now, the humans are consumed in the technology, and technology is easy to predict. I'm a computer programmer, so if I can program a computer and figure what that computer is going to do, it's people easy, really.
Right.
Yeah. So
what are some of the things that you would foresee? I'm curious. With, of course, we just 5 years ago had the 2012 juncture with the end of the Mayan calendar, and you have a lot of people who have sort of talked about that being, speaking of doom and gloom, being the end. The end. Others talking about being the beginning. What is your take on that?
Well, the 2012, the people came to me and asked me, said, "Oh no, is the Earth going to end, the Mayan calendar and everything else?" But let's look back. Look back at what's really going on in the world. Of course, World War I is a world event. World War II is a world event. So that's easy. I can pinpoint things from there because it has that exact date in seconds. So if you go back there and do the mathematical formula, which I did, is that I came up to 2012 on that moon cycle, and that moon cycle didn't have anything. We didn't have any people died that day. I don't have my paperwork right in front of me, but 72,500 people died that day. 8,001 people were born. And there was just a number of wars still going on. I mean, that was easy to figure out, and nothing was really predicted on that date. And we had a celebration on that date. We had a get together, and we danced that date. We danced for the new day, new light. And the only thing that I could come up with a prediction is people were predicting the end of the world. I couldn't come up with anything negative from that. But we put emphasis on that too, that was so popularized on the computer. Anywhere you go, it's 2012. And of course, it's going to change our event by thinking about it, and it did. It changed our perspective by 4% of that day. That 4% that we're more negative that day than we were positive the next day, and the next day was increase of being positive because everybody's rejoicing it wasn't eliminated.
Right. We weren't dead.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's kind of how predictions go. Earthquakes and things like that, they're easy enough if you know where the pinpoints are. And usually I'm going to, once I get going, I'm going to come up with an app. And, there's the National Geographic Association uses mathematical formulas to come up with predictions of earthquakes. And they're 73% right compared to my 91%. Only reason why I'm doing it is because I'm not using their machinery. I'm using a lot of math and things like that to do that. And all the earthquakes I predict were right on the mark.
Wow.
And they're not the big ones, of course, but I can still predict 5 today. I predicted 5 today and had the numbers written down. So.
Wow. So you do this on a regular basis then?
Yeah, well, and what I do, because I'm a star teacher, is that you need some of this information out there that when you're teaching, the part of the star teachings is everything underneath the stars that you teach and learn. And a lot of that is prediction, of course, but we predict earthquakes. We can predict humans. That's not that problem. Is that it's just harder to understand where that is coming from, I guess.
Right.
Is it coming from a spiritual source? Yes and no, but humans are of spirit, but they don't follow spirit too much. They say they do, but most of people I know they don't. They follow human instincts and human feelings and things like that. So they're easy to predict.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you've talked about the star teachings, and I know this is a big part of what you're here to do and focused on. Can you give us the sort of the rundown on what exactly you're referring to when you say the star teachings?
The Mi'kmaq Nation, at one time, we vast at least 7 million to 8 million strong in our nations. Our teachings are from the Copper Scrolls, and the Copper Scrolls are a written language that most people don't know. That written language has a language on it that gives us direction, and it gives us different things to look for and different things to build, and it gives us our teachings. And the teachings, of course, the beginning of the teaching is kindness, compassion, happiness. That is the basics of the Copper Scrolls, of the vibration. That comes from our elders many years ago, and from the elders, it comes from the ancient elders, and the ancient elders are star people, and the star people in our legends are from here. They're from the stars. They brought this teachings to the Mi'kmaq people to bring to the world. We sat on this for at least 20,000 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and the teachings...
That's a long time.
The teachings are almost like the 10 Commandments, but they're not commandments, they're suggestions. They're suggestions how to build, how to do math, how to build communities, how to do just about everything. In these teachings, they have a written mathematical formula that I know that took me a long while to learn. It's not anything like your math. It's not 2 and 2 plus 4. That is only a suggestion. People don't realize that your numbers goes from 1 to 9. You guys can't count beyond that point, but you guys add a 0 from, you go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right up to 9, then 9, 0, then 1, 10. And the reason why you guys do that is because you guys have 10 digits. Your fingers are 10, toes are 10. And that's where we base our math from. It's hard to base that math because if you're going to fly to the stars, you can't do it with 10s. So you can come pretty close, but you need to have a different mathematical system to travel from here to Vega. And that system goes from 0 to 13. And if you do your math in that it lines up with nature, the Fibonacci theory, things like that, and it's easier to do. It's a triangle in math. It's 4 points. It's a triangle for 4 points. The middle one would be whatever the 2 adds up to be. the 3 adds up to B is the center number. And you can figure that, and I can figure that with any math problem or anything out there. I know that I've talked to a lot of mathematicians on it, and it's hard to wrap your head around, because if you are trained in a regular number system, this is going to be hard to make sense, because you're trained in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until you get up a billion and something like that. But that takes a lot to do. But this here is that once you wrap your head around it, it's easier to figure out. Here to the distance of the moon, or here, take a dust particle from here and measure a dust particle on the moon and get it to accurate. So 1/100th of a billionth of an inch.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
And
now, these copper scrolls, are they still, you still have them? Do the Mi'kmaq, community still have these scrolls physically?
Yes, I am not in possession of the scrolls. The scrolls was passed on through our council, and one of the warriors of the Star Teachings are in possession of that scrolls and protecting that scrolls for now. But when I need them, that person brings them forward so I can read them.
Wow! So you've actually sat and studied them directly
for 27 years. Yes.
Wow! And how robust is the information? I mean, as far as, I think of the Bible, or, how big it is as far as how much information is in it. Is there a ton of scrolls? Is there just a few?
It's like your writing system. You can only write so much in a book, that information. Yep. This is probably about 10 Alexander libraries, maybe more.
Wow.
Yeah. The information is so vast, it's harder to wrap your head around, because the information goes back to Atlantis, to all the different other civilizations that weren't out there, and their technologies and some of the things that they brought through the copper scrolls to bring here. And this is why I'm talking to you today, is I think that most people don't really understand, especially in the teachers in the Star Teachings, that this information is so vast. It's bigger than your planet. It's bigger than your universe. It explains the beginning, where we're going. I mean, it explains math, explains technology. There's things in the copper scrolls that they want us to build. There's a temple that they want us to build. The star lodges, number of star lodges around the world. To bring this information and to bring the copper scrolls out, so we can share this information with the Star Temple and the lodges. You just can't sit down and read this. It doesn't work that way. It is a vibrational language, so it's like a crystal with information in it, and there's tons of information. And the Star Lodge is some of the decoding centers that communities will get in there, and they will download the information to the community.
Wow. That's quite a fascinating concept. And is it, is it something where you've been instructed at this time? It's something to sort of bring forward the information to the world at large, and, up to this point, it's sort of been hidden?
This has been hidden for many of years. Probably, I would say 1977, that's when the information really was starting to come out. It came out to the elders, and I was coming of age. I was understanding what I was doing. Yes, the information is coming out, and we are. This is the call. Well, this is the call that we're making. This is a very important podcast. We are looking for the teachers. We're looking for help. We're looking for to construct these star lodges for the communities, not just for our community, for all nations and all the world. There's a lot of things that's going on in the world. People have been looking for an answer, and it's right in the prophecies. You've asked for this, and we are here. The star people are here. It's just if the people are going to accept it. So this is what I am here today to do.
All right. Well, now seems like a good time to tell those of you who aren't familiar a bit about our sponsor, Gaia. I've been a big fan of Gaia for many years now, which is why they're the only content provider I have ever reached out to in regards to potentially supporting the Positive Head podcast. So needless to say, I'm very excited they're now supporting this show. Gaia truly is my personal go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web. They have an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. They have a plethora of amazing content to always keep your positive head spinning. For example, in the brand new series Beyond the Legend, best-selling author of Chariot of the Gods, Eric von Daniken, takes us beyond the myths and legends that have shaped our view of history to present an alternate view of historical events, megalithic structures, and archaeological discoveries. Eric's been researching this stuff for over 50 years. So if you've ever wanted to deep dive into these sorts of topics that you're just not going to find on traditional networks, Eric is doing just that on Beyond the Legend. And that's just one example of fascinating content you can find on Gaia. As you all hear me constantly say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to go deep down the rabbit hole to do so, Gaia is the best place I know of to do it, period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positive head. That's spelled GAIA.com/positive head. Check it out. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, can you give a little more sort of background on the Star People? Like, do the scrolls say where they came from originally? And, you know, I mean, any sort of highlights? Obviously, it's a lot of information, it sounds like. What are some of the highlights that you would like to share today?
Well, say 27,000 years ago, when the Star People came here, our planet was in disarray. There's a lot of things was going on. Of course, the planet's always changing, and it was a little bit colder than today. That they came, and the path is pretty direct on the star map. We come from Vega. We come from that constellation of Vega, and we came here. Not to help, is to assist, and they stayed here for many of years, assisting different communities around the world, the Mi'kmaq people, and for many of years that we did not have war. We didn't need to fight amongst each other. We had technology that rivals anything that we have now. We had no disease. We lived a little bit longer. We lived 250 years to 300 or up to 400 to 600 years old. And the original Star People, some of them are still here, and they're in their 300s now, or 300s to 400s. And there's only 13 of us, though. 13 Star People. Yeah, to help, to bring this out. But the awakening happened 5 years ago. And it took us this long to get to you. Because we've been out there awakening the communities, awakening the teachers, and that took a lot to do because we went out and spoke into different communities and did different ceremonies in different communities to wake them, and we're on that journey right now. And Star People are among you. That your reincarnation, some of the reincarnation of the Star People are people like you, your grandfather, and your distant cousin. These people here need to be awakened and understand. And I know that most of the community that I'm talking to right now can relate to being familiar with this. And to be understanding, said, well, I understand what he's talking about, but I just don't have all the information. And this is what we're doing. We're looking for you. We're looking to turn some lights on here. We're looking to turn 7 million lights on and looking in one direction.
Why 7 million? Is that sort of the tipping point number to spread consciousness?
Well, when you talk about consciousness, we already have consciousness. It's about what are we doing with it?
Or waking consciousness, I guess, or,
yes.
you know.
Yep. Yes,
Gotcha.
it is. It's more in a vibrational number than because to make change in this world, we can do change by 2,000 or 3,000 people, but it doesn't stay. And it's just a fad. The 7 million
Right.
looking in one directions will change our direction. They would change our direction.
Right.
If that vibrational way is of peace, we'll work towards the peace. If it's of war, of course, it's going to be at war. But the 7 million that the instruction was made is the 7 million looking in one direction. And we had a ceremony several weeks ago when the eclipse. We have a technology in North Carolina right now that we have been assembling. And that technology is a vibrational resonator that has been built. And that starting to draw people. The energy vibration is, the machine is turned on. That machine is turned on.
Wow.
Yeah. And we've been working on that the last few years too. And we still have a lot more work to do on it, but we're looking to build that one and many more around the country, in Canada and several other places.
Wow.
And
what is the point of this machine that you're referencing? What is the underlying?
It's a resonator. What happens in most communities when they pray and when they're doing ceremony, there's a certain vibration that goes on, and most people can't sustain it without community. And when that is now, they keep on looking for churches and different power places and things like that, and turning on that consciousness. What you say, I'm saying it's a spiritual machine, but remember, it's just a machine. But it will help us to keep in that vibration so we can think who we are and where we are. And I tell people that if you can get to this, I will post a link somewhere and to tell you where this is, and to journey there and to understand what that is and what that vibration is to get there. That's very important. Yeah, that's one.
So anyone can go and experience it firsthand. It's like a open to the public kind of thing.
Yes. And I will put it. I will give you information where that is.
Yeah. Please do.
And that is from the Copper Scrolls too. That machine is from the Copper Scrolls to build, and we have instruction to build more.
Wow! And you referenced star lodges. What can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, the Star Lodges is a place of knowledge of the ancients. Is that when community assembles there, and the lodges are not too big, but they're big enough to at least house 20 to 40 people. And it's in a binary circle. And that binary circle is a vibration from the Star Lodge. And it has constellations and different things in that lodge and technology, like the spiritual machine. That's kind of what that is. It will emit a vibration so we can enter this knowledge and then receive this knowledge and keep it. That's what the Star Lodge is for. They're information that has been stored for millions of years in people to go and receive it, almost like a church. And what a church is not a building. It is community. Church means people. Yep.
Right. Now you've had the opportunity to actually meet the Dalai Lama. Is that correct? Yes. How was that experience, and under what premise were you meeting the Dalai Lama?
The information, 1977, they instructed me in a ceremony that was done on a mountain in Sweat Lodge to bring letters of concern from the nations to the Eastern spiritual leader. And these letters were some of the letters are very old. Some of these letters are very valuable, like into the $30,000 or $40,000 value just for one letter. And I took these letters and brought those to the Dalai Lama and delivered them. And we talked about what was going on in the world and what the language and what we were doing and the vibration and what was going on. And he thought it was very important that I deliver the message, what I'm delivering to you, to the communities, that there is something going on that people don't really understand. There is hope. There is hope for peace. There is hope for happiness and compassion. And this is my This is what we talked about. We talked for quite a long time, and I do have another audience with him. I'm not sure, they haven't got back to me, but it's going to be very soon. And I'll be giving a report on what I've been doing and what the community's been doing.
Wow. Very interesting. I've heard it said that some of the religious leaders, even recently, hearing that like people like the Pope and the Vatican are very aware and even in communication with extraterrestrial races and beings. What are your thoughts on that idea? That concept?
Well, yeah, you got to think about these, especially the Pope, that I am setting up a meeting with him, hopefully in the next year or so, and to get some of the information back that they took back during the Second World War in the 1940s and 50s. And some of the information that they received, what we received anyway, is from people not, races are not from this earth. And a lot of information out there between the President of the United States today and the Pope and all the religious leaders, they use this information to govern. Why does a Pope have to sit on a rock to be inaugurated to be a Pope? What is that rock? What is the staff that he uses? What is the crown that he uses to be Pope? If this is a piece that we don't need anything to represent that, do we? So I do believe that they are in cahoots with extraterrestrial beings out there. Got to remember this when you say that. There's not just one or two.
Right.
In my teachings and in the teachings that was given to me, there's at least a lot more than what people think.
Yeah. Well, I've heard all kinds of things. This is a topic that I find very interesting. I can't say I've had any firsthand experience myself, but I have, very close friends who've had experiences. Even Matt has a great story of his experience with an unidentified flying object. So, curious. Yeah, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that whole topic, and if you've had any sort of firsthand experience yourself with any beings from elsewhere, if you will?
I guess you have to think about this. And this is kind of brings pertinent to the question, is that how do you know you're not speaking to one now? That's really what... But you don't know. I have a history and everything, but most likely if there's extraterrestrial beings out there, they're going to be teachers in some sort, and some of them are not like us. They don't believe in happiness and kindness and compassion and love. We keep on thinking that exists in the universe. That only we look through that through a magnifying glass through space. I know offhand that we are tucked away in the Milky Way, and we're kind of alone from other beings, but we're not that far away. There's a dust cloud, at least 5 light years out there, that we can't see the city. They can't see the populations. We keep on thinking we're alone. Our radio signals already reach these other terrestrials out there, and we're Grand Central Station. We're right now that we're not part of the galaxy, or part of the Federation, what the people call it. Maybe we might be. Is that we are not conscious enough to really understand what that is, and we keep on thinking these UFOs and stuff like that are from millions of miles away, billions of miles away, I'm sorry, but they're from our communities. Think about that. Is that right now that we have these little drones that fly around, because we were out several weeks ago, and one of the drones was flying around us taking pictures. We don't know where that drone is from. If they're extraterrestrial beings, of course they're going to use our technology and all the stuff that's around us. They don't want to be suspicious. So flying their little flying saucers around, might be anybody in there, but they might be information collecting, or they might be from our future, because science always tells us that we can time travel back or front. Right. So what are these are people, at least a couple of millions of years ahead of us, coming back and looking at us, and if they pretty well know the history, so they know where to put the UFOs and not capture them. Yeah. So And the ones that we did capture, or supposedly capture, are we using that technology? How are we using that technology? I don't really see it in the world of what that technology is, because I do know what some of the power sources are to the UFOs, and they're not electricity. They're something else. So yeah, usually that one of the projects that I was assigned to is for at least 6 years to monitor the actual lights in the sky and figure what they are. And with our cameras today and cell phone cameras, that we're still taking pictures of blurry objects. I have never seen an actual 35 millimeter. Well, I take that back. I have seen an actual picture of a UFO clearly. I took it.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, that's the information that I looking for is like, what are they? What are they doing here? Are they satellites? Are they informational crafts and things like that? The projects that I've been working on the last few years is high altitude atmosphere balloons to study anomalies and magnetic fields 100,000 to 300,000 feet up. Wow. And these are specialized balloons that I use. They're not rubber, they're mylar balloons. And they look up and they look down. And when I turn the cameras around and look down, it's incredible. I wish I can post some of those pictures, but I'm not going to post them right now. But I even took them to a physicist to show the pictures. And he said, he even called the pictures incredible, that they've never seen something so clearly on what a UFO was. Yep.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And that's all documented. And like I said, I'm still doing research on that high altitude things, objects.
Interesting. Do you feel like there's going to be some level of disclosure coming? You know, you hear a lot of rumblings about that sort of thing, and it's going to be sort of put forward in front of the masses that, you know, that
We've already received some of the disclosure stuff, but it's so vague. Most of it, you know, we're still going through the paperwork. They just disclosed something this last spring, January 25th, and I looked through that information and I posted a couple online, and some of it people I'm not listening to, because there's a lot of audio. There's a lot of audio and different things that's going on. And there's a lot of disclosure. And then the government's already admitted there's other things flying around in this disclosure.
Right. Do you think, though, it will soon come where you have the president standing on the, you know, making a press release? Okay, I'm here to tell you guys. And by the way, here's one of them. Do you think that sort of thing is possible in our lifetime?
Since Truman, they have made that disclosure. They haven't admitted it. You just got to do some research on that. President Reagan went in front of the United Nations and admitted that there were things flying around. You just had to read into it. Trump already admitted it during his election campaign, that he said that we should go get the Ark of the Covenant. He knows where it is. And I know where it is too. So,
really, what is that?
Well, the Ark of the Covenant is a device. I guess it's more of an ancient computer. Well, I say ancient. Well, our computers are ancient. The stuff that the Ark of the Covenant is, it's always been around, and that is an informational center, and it's some of the copper scrolls were housed in it.
Interesting.
Is that understandable?
Yeah. Well, it's just, you know, it's a lot of information, and there's so many different points that I just want to pick your brain on. One that you touched on the show with Matt. You talked about, and this is something we talk a lot about on the show, manifestation. You talked about the compression of time and how you can, slingshot your projections and, or projects into manifestation. Can you speak a little bit on that topic?
Yeah. If you look around you in the scientific term that the world spins around, and of course we're spinning around the Milky Way and we're moving through space in a circular orbit around the sun, and the sun is going through things. So the space is always changing. The space-time continuum that's around us is always changing. The Milky Way has a influx field to it, and the influx field has different time zones, just like time zones on Earth, different times. So we're going through that like a DNA. We have a double helix around our Earth. We're traveling through that. So we're going through distortions of time, and depending on if it's compression or it's being relieved. Right now, we're going through a side compression. Mm-hmm. So if you could figure this out and where the compressions are, we're going through fields right now, and we just don't see those fields. And some of those fields are contortions, some are bends, some of them are different things. And right now that in our day as a human being, that 24 hours, not really 24 hours, it's 23.99993.000. So that's compression. So the reason why it's not exactly 24, because the way the Earth is, it changes through compression and time, things like that. So those time slices that we're going through, we lose 7 to 3 minutes a day in compression. But we gain at least a minute. That means that you can figure out where you're going. Like throwing a baseball, there's compression on one side, relief on the other side. Is that we go through time right now where we make an excuse. This day went by a little bit faster, and I've really measured people's responses to another person, and there's some gains and there's some losses, and the clock stays the same. Do you understand that?
Right, yeah.
And so that if somebody knew how to do this and manipulate that, they can compress this to at least an hour to a minute. And the Copper Scrolls gives us a solution for that, how to do that. You would call them doorways or slips or wakes or eddies of time. And there's a way to figure out where they are and to actually see them through a filtered lens.
Wow, that's quite a fascinating concept. So, for the lay person, though, what would they do to, what sort of advice would you give on manifesting, becoming a clear, more concise, more proficient in manifestation?
The teaching tells us in the teaching, but it's disguised. And if you know what the disguise is, and this is it's going to seem so weird when I tell you, take a different path home. Don't continue on the same path. Change that path. Change that time period. And when you traveling, like if you travel home to the same place all the time, you take the same lights, same things. It's hard to experience the compression. But once you start changing that path, that compression changes to a person that don't understand. Things will change in their lives. Different things will happen. Different manifestations will make themselves known. And that's simple.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
Yep. And a lot of this information that I'm telling you, the Army back in the 30s experimented with the Manhattan Project, or I guess you'd call it. And they worked with that, and of course they lost the whole ship and many people. They kind of didn't do their math, because once they build a magnetic field, of course some of these compression waves went through the compression field, made them a lot more stronger, and of course it didn't bend time, it just made time in a different place.
Right. Do you think they've gotten that down since then? And probably a lot of people listening have heard of the Manhattan Project and the sort of, as the story goes, the ship disappeared and then reappeared, and some of the men on the ship were then embedded in the hull and things like that. And do you think there has been advancement since then, where our governments, our military has a better understanding how to do things like teleport or time travel or any of those sort of ideas?
You need the Rosetta Stone to do that. The technology is so wide versed on our Earth, because we're going through fields every day. Back in the 20s and 30s, Hitler looked for the Star People and kidnapped several of our people out of our nations to trying to figure out this information. And of course, his flying saucer project and things like that.
Right.
And so that was some of the technology through the Star People that had that. That's what he's looking for, is how to exactly do that accurately. We cannot do it accurately now without knowing where those doors and slips are. And our government is smart, but they also need people to do what they want to do. It's like most people don't want to do that. I don't want to do that because it's there. It's always been there through our evolution. Is just finding out where they are and what that is benefit to us. It wouldn't be travel wouldn't be any time travel wouldn't be any beneficial to anybody. Everybody thinks, you can go back and get the lottery tickets and come back. Way time is set up and way nature is set up, you can't do that. Because everything that you think of, everything you've done is a piece of time. You have no imagination. And this is the hard people. People have a hard time putting around that. The imagination that you have is that you've already done something before. That's the imagination. That your mind is not be able to comprehend putting images together.
So what you're saying is basically there's no way to change the past, or were you saying it would create like an alternate timeline?
It's already there. We're slices in time. We're not like we're like a movie. Every frame, is a movie. It's like going to see a movie the first time, and you're waiting for the results, and you get in. The movies are like, okay, you know what? It's going to be right down to the last second when somebody fires a shot or somebody's going to move, because they're in slits in time. But we're going into the movies expecting something new. The outcome is already determined. It's like in the time slips of the same thing, is that you were president. If you can imagine that you were a president, if you can imagine if you're a clown in the desert in the snowstorm, that's already happened in your life. The imagination already happened.
Right.
So trying to go back into time and trying to figure out what that field is, or trying to make a lottery for yourself, or shooting your grandfather and you not being alive, you're just making other timelines. That's all you're doing. And
right.
And there's room for billions more, believe me.
Right. Yeah, that's something that I always say is, I believe our lives, my theory is that our lives play out sort of at the corner of free will and destiny. And what I mean by that is there is no time, but there's infinite paths that we can choose. So it's destined because it's already happened. There's no time, right? And then free will comes in because you're actually choosing which version of your own movie you want to pop in the player, so to speak, right? And I would say that what our aim is to experience the greatest and grandest version, the one that's the most fulfilling. And the good news is you've already been there, done that, and gotten the t-shirt, right? So I believe we're stepping in and out of timelines with our vibration. That's sort of how I can wrap my brain around it.
So the power to be that brought the copper scrolls to us, and the instructions that I received is that we have no free will as much as we think we do, but we do have choice. Choice and free will is two different things. Our choice today is that we pay taxes and we're going to get a job. And we need money to make this podcast, and we need money to do other things. But we keep on thinking that as our destiny is that I'm going to be rich so we can change the world. Do you realize you can change the world without money? Is that our belief is that, okay, we need money to travel where you are. I need money to travel to North Carolina. And that is our reality right now, is that's what we make it. And the ancients tell us that we're in a grand movie. We're in this movie, and it's for us. If you are stressed, that means you are stressed, but you're making your own stress. That we keep on thinking people make our stress, but we choose what we do with that energy.
Right. No one makes us do anything.
Right.
Right. Yeah,
My belief is strong.
I couldn't agree
Belief
more.
that-
Yeah, and I know so many people who who are experiencing all kinds of things, traveling the world with little to no financial resources, and that's certainly a truth that I've seen expressed firsthand. People who are able to sort of find their way and get what they need, and as they take those steps with faith, that they can do a lot without just focus, like so many of us do, get fixated on money being the means, the medium to create all the things we want to see.
I agree with that, and it's hard in this day and age because all the psychics and mediums and people that want to heal, they need the money, and they come up with these great programs, but it kind of leads us off the path of the real spiritual consciousness that we're looking for, a higher consciousness. Tell me one person on this earth, one person that has a higher consciousness. I can't name one. But we're looking for it, and we come up with programs and number of different things out there to come up with a higher consciousness, to build the DNA and things like that. But we still are needing money. We're still fighting. We're still killing each other in droves. I'm sure that I get a lot of argument on that. And anytime that I ever speak, a lot of people walk out because this is how they make their living. And
right.
And if we are looking for that spiritual truth, is that we're going to have to really look at what's really going on here. I'm not here to make money. I'm not here to sell you a book. I was asked to come here from my elders and my ancient elders to deliver these teachings to you.
Right.
I'm homeless. I don't have a home. That I don't have an actual income. I mean.
Right.
And I'm not making millions of dollars off talking to you today.
Right. Right.
And that's really hard for people to understand because we measure information by value. I used to be a motivational speaker one time, and to come to hear me speak, you was going to at least come up with $600 to $200 to come to hear me speak. And I filled auditoriums, 62,000, 65,000, 20,000 people to come and hear me speak. But I'm not asking for that. I'm just asking to listen and to give me the benefit of the doubt for at least 20 seconds.
Right. Well, certainly that is admirable. And I've talked about this before as well. It's one of those tricky things, living in a society that's so, programmed that money has to be sort of the thing that makes the wheels go round. And when you cross that with some of this, these sorts of teachings, and we look at how that correlates to raising consciousness and so forth, it can definitely become a slippery slope for a lot of people, and monetizing their work. And of course, they have bills to pay and that sort of things too. And for me, I've been very blessed that I've found other ways to create an income. I have, as an entrepreneur and things like that, have other ways that I make money, so I haven't had to make that primary focus on this show. But I certainly understand that's a challenging topic for a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. I know that the teachings that I teach, they're simple teachings, but there's a lot to it. A lot to understand what that vibrational spiritual energy is and what that truly is. I think that in this world that we are on that trip to the stars. We're ready to fly, and some of us are ready to receive the information. And if this is a higher consciousness, honestly, if this is the highest consciousness, that consciousness has got to be more than what we can ever think, more than the English language. I put a mathematical formula out there several weeks ago that we've made up all the words and put all the words that we can together, and we can't do any more. So how do we go to the next step of the highest consciousness when we're limited on our words? We wrote millions of books, thousands of different things out there, and there's things going on the computer and things like that right now. How is that going to stir the consciousness, that higher consciousness? What are we trying to do with that higher consciousness? It should be no words that we can ever put together. It should be something that the words that we do hear, that we can do something with this. We can actually do something with this. Not sell a book to you saying what that word is. Is it the spiritual beings on this planet are really in communications with each other in this net, but we just don't know what we're listening to, because spirit people, I've been on a couple of radio programs. They ask, what does spirit tell you to do? The spirit tells me to do nothing, just to listen. And it's my choice to bring this information to you. And that information that I hear is not what you think. I don't hear that voice of spirit saying, "Hi, Dave, how are you today? I hope your day is good." That I don't hear that. I hear a library every time that I go to speak in front of people, or if I'm going to do a lecture or something like that. If you really look what I'm really doing, people have not looked at that. I bring a book with me, but the books, I don't need books. I don't need something in front of me to look down at. But I bring it so people, gives them a little bit of safety that I'm reading off something. But if they really, I don't need that. I don't need anything. I can get in front of thousands of people and deliver the spiritual message through that vibration, what I hear and see. That's always how spirit talk to me. And what is spirit? Well, who is talking to me? Why am I doing this? I often wonder. I used to tell the spirits that they chose the wrong person to do this. Now, if you look at me, when people think of native, they think of long hair and feathers and leather and things like that. Most people think I look like a Mexican. It's like, but Mexicans are native too. But people don't. They want to see the Native American long flowing hair and me talking about the Great Spirit and eagles and all that. And then I do talk about that every once in a while, but that is not from spirit. That is from humans. We are relating something to the vibration to an animal that speaks. But the humans are not the big and bad here. We keep on thinking we're the big and bad. There's other things on this planet that's more big and bad than you can ever imagine. But it's hard to speak about, because this topic today is talking about what we're talking about. This podcast could not happen 5 years ago or 10 years ago, because people are not ready for this information. They don't know exactly what I'm saying. So when we're listening to spirit, we all listen to spirit, really. I'm not the only one. But people say, well, I'm chosen. What spirit told me, but we're never chosen for anything. There's nobody. Gandhi was never chosen. The Dalai Lama was never chosen by spirit. That's all.
He chose himself to do the work that he did. Right. Right.
Yep. And the Creator or God don't choose no one. We're here on that choice of what we want to do. I was not chosen to do this. I was asked to do this. And when I took this road, it was my choice to be on this road. It wasn't the elders' choice. They gave me an option.
Right.
And here I am today speaking to somebody in California over a machine that we can't understand. That's a vibrational machine that it's a magic box.
That's right. That's absolutely true. It would definitely be viewed as magic, if we took it back to 500 years and showed it to someone what we're doing, they would be, probably want to worship us.
They would. And this machine, you can ask it anything. Yeah, you can ask it, what is the secret of life? You can even ask Siri's on your phone, and that voice will come up and tell you. Some people have conversations with Siri's like a human being. That's weird.
Right. Yep. It is getting weirder. That's for sure. And speaking of weird, that makes me think. I love to hear stories of synchronicity or serendipity or positive paranormal stories. And so, David, I got to imagine you have some weird stories that you'd like to share.
Yeah. I didn't take this seriously for a long time, of spirit and to listen. So after 1977, my life went into different directions. I went around the world and did everything, but it was always spirit says, we've asked you. You said you would deliver these teachings to the world, and kind of like, when are you going to do it? It's like your mother, when are you going to take the garbage out? Said, well, okay, I'll do it, and it came to a point that I tried going out there. I went to powwows and gatherings, but I was more entertainment because I'm a flute player too. That I went and told stories, and people clapped, and never really listened to my stories of the star teachings. And I went to hundreds of gatherings and powwows and colleges and schools and things like that to tell these stories, but nobody took me seriously.
Right.
And probably 20 some odd years ago that I got a divorce, and before that my life was good. I had plenty of money. I had a job. I was the chief of the Mi'kmaq, and it was good. But my life changed in a total second. And when that second changed is that I had money, then the next day I did not have money. But I still heard spirit. I still heard, seen and everything. And I kind of went on the road. And what spirit said that you would never be cold, you would never be hungry. And when I hitchhiked, and it was raining, that I never got wet. That I was never hungry. I ended up going to Ellsworth, Maine, the place of my birth, and settling there in Gooseboro. And it was, I guess I was really depressed because I didn't want to associate with the star teachings, or I didn't want to storytell it anymore. My life was ruined. It didn't seem like I was getting anywhere. Mm-hmm. I stopped in the general store. I think they made sandwiches. I stopped in there to get a sandwich and talk with the person. And they said, what are you doing here? I said, well, I'm looking for a place. I'm looking for work, and I'm looking for a place to stay. The person that was in front of me turns around and he says, what do you do? I said, I'm a master carpenter. I know I can build just about anything. He says, well, that's good. I need some work done. Can you work for me once you find a place? I said, yeah, I can find it. Sure, that'd be great. So the person in front of that person turns around and says, I have a place right up the road that's for rent for $400.
Oh, wow.
And when I left there, when I left home, I had a couple of dollars in my pocket. I think I had like $33. And ended up, I said, well, I probably can't make that right now. These people known each other back and forth. I said, well, I know this person, and I know that he'll pay you. And before I left the store, the guy that's hiring me for carpentry paid him $400 for the first month rent. And I went to the house that afternoon. There was an empty house, and it overlooked the ocean, and it was a pretty big house. And I had my dog with me. I always travel with my dog, and stayed there that night. And the downstairs had a workshop, and it had a few buildings around there that I could work in. And I went to work a couple of days later for the guy, worked all week, and he gave me $850. And I paid back the $400, and I had $400 in my pocket to buy groceries, something like that. So I don't know if that's coincidence or just good timing.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's definitely synchronistic in how things lined up for you to get a place to stay and a job, and then they work things out between themselves to accommodate you is pretty slick.
So that went on, and then of course Spirit said there was the help, and I worked in my basement because I'm an artist, and then I built a couple of things and things like that and sold them, and that voice came again. He says, "You remember?" He said that we asked you to bring these teachings. So I went to schools and kindergartens, but and I stayed there for a couple of years, and then I worked and did that for a couple of years after the divorce. And of course, I purchased a vehicle and all that, and so I had somewhat stability there. I could at least live. Right. And I went to the colleges and schools, telling the stories and everything else. And I remember going, I think, to New Hampshire, one of the colleges down there, and there was a lot of people there to hear my stories, and what I felt like a token native or token Indian, that they were just using me because I'm an Indian. So I remember coming home that night, and I was very mad. And then I said it, and I told Spirit, I don't want to do this anymore, and this is so stupid, and everything else. And I was physically mad. I was kicking my chairs, and my dog left, because he knew I was mad. And I had this flute that was passed down through my grandfather's. Flute's over 300 years old. And I took this flute and threw it through the picture window in anger. And, of course, it went through the picture window and everything else. And after a while, my anger subsided, and cleaned up the glass, put some plywood over the window. And my dog come back and everything else. I cleaned up. And I felt like I remember praying that evening, telling the Creator, I don't want to do this anymore. Take these memories away. Take these stories away. Just take it so I can't tell these stories no more. I remember saying that and cleaning up the glass and getting ready for bed. My dog has he's a wolf. He had a little sleeping place right in the corner, and usually when I go to bed, he gets all cuddled up there and rolls around, turns around about 4 or 5 times and goes to sleep. And he did that night, and to this very day, I can't tell you if this is a dream or if it really come true. But I'll tell you what my version was, what happened that night. Part of that is that I got a phone call that night, and that phone call was from my dad, and my dad was wondering if I was all right. And my dad and I spoke almost every day. He's my biggest fan and my best friend. And we talked that night, and I was still angry. I could still feel I was hot and upset about everything. And I went to bed and fell asleep. And that evening, I heard a awful commotion in the living room. And I come out and looked into the living room, and I didn't see anything. The bedroom light lit up the room a little bit. It's the living room, because the bedroom was connected right to the living room. And I looked around, and I looked in the corner of the living room, and part of the corner of the living room was dark. It was like darker than I can ever imagine what dark is. And it was right in the corner, and I was like, holy, because I'm a scientist trying to figure what was going on. And I was looking at that, and it was more of a mist in the corner of a dark, it was like a black hole, but deeper. And I was looking at this, and when I was looking at it, 2 lights appeared, like eyes, and they were kind of bright red eyes. And I was looking at that and I said, wow, that's incredible. And when I said that, something came out of the darkness and bit me on my head. This monster, whatever, it grabbed me right in the head and was throwing me around the living room. It had a hold of my head and part of my neck and my shoulder. And it was trying to, I think it was trying to eat me. And I was screaming. And when I screamed, my wolf woke up. My wolf was white. And he got up and attacked this thing and took it off me, and he was fighting this thing. And I was on the ground, on the floor, moving myself backwards to the wall. And I don't know if I was bleeding by puncture wounds in my head and part of my face and my body. And I was kept on backing up and seeing my wolf battling this thing, whatever it was. I don't know if it was a dragon, a wolf, some snake or something, but it was battling it. And I finally passed out. And when I passed out, then everything went black. Then I woke up next morning in my bed. And when I woke up, of course, the sun was shining a little bit. And of course, I had this wicked headache. And I looked in kind of in the window, was kind of getting light out. And I looked at my body. My body was fine. There were no puncture wounds or nothing. And I looked around the room and jumped up because I remember my wolf attacked this thing. I got up, and of course my picture window was still broken. And I looked in that corner. The blackness wasn't in the corner anymore, but my wolf was all curled up in this corner. And every morning I get up, I tell him, "Come on, Westo." That was it. Westo is snow in our language. Westo means snow. That's how I named it. Westo. I said, "Come here, get your go away. Come here." That means come here. Let's go out. And I opened the back door and went to him. He was still all cut off. I said, "Come on, lazy bone. Come on, get out of there." And he didn't get up. And I said, "Come on, get up." He didn't get up.
Wow.
And I kneeled down and pushed him, but it was kind of hard. And I put my head up to his chest to see if he was breathing, and he wasn't breathing. That night he died in his sleep.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an intense experience. And for you, it was just a very vivid recollection when you woke up of this experience, trying to probably sort out whether or not you had dreamed it or it had happened, actually happened. And wow, that's very intense.
So that's emotional. Every time I tell that story, it's an emotional story because this wolf, I got him in Labrador 15 years before. And he was, thick and thin. He was beside me, and he saved me that night. And I ended up I haven't cried so hard in all my life. Every time I tell the story, it's hard. So because I remember him.
Yeah.
I ended up taking him and bringing him in the woods and putting him in a burial place. And his brothers came and got him that night and took him back to his home.
Wow.
But I remember this. So the reason why I remember this is that I called my father, told him kind of what happened. And my father says, "You need to come home, son." And I agreed with him because, I was gone for a couple of years from the divorce and everything. And he came down and got me, loaded up all my stuff because I had a van, he had a truck, and we drove home. And for a couple of months, everything was fine, but I had these wicked headaches. I couldn't stop these headaches from happening.
That had started from that night. Yeah.
And I remember one day that it was my father and my uncles were in the basement, and we usually we jam out. We have guitars and things like that and banjos. We're down there playing in the basement, and I was playing, and we were short one guitar chord. And my dad told me to go up in the extra bedroom to pick one up. So I went upstairs and went into the closet, got the chord, and walked to the living room, and that's all I remember. I couldn't remember anymore. And what happened is that the reason why I couldn't remember is because I had an aneurysm, and the aneurysm broke that day. And I went into a cardiac arrest, and my heart stopped for 72 seconds.
Wow.
And I ended up waking up a few months in a hospital and not remember what went on. And what happened is my heart stopped, and my next door neighbor gave me CPR to start my heart again. And what happened is I had an aneurysm, and when I woke up, I could not speak. I didn't remember who I was. I didn't remember the stories. I didn't remember my family. And I didn't have a control over my breathing. They had an apparatus to control my breathing. And of course, I couldn't use the bathroom. They had something tied to me so I can use the bathroom. And so that day, it took me 6 years, and even to this day, that I have a hard time speaking and thinking and finding my way home. That's been over 20 years ago that happened. Wow. So the Creator didn't answer my prayers. He did take my breath away. He did take my language away. He took the stories away. And it's taken me this long to bring these stories back to the communities and what was they asked me to do. So that's a hard story because it's a true story, but it's a hard story for me because that when I died, the 72 seconds, I was gone in spirit time for 3 years. And when I left my body to that other place, they brought me across a river underneath of a tree. And then that tree.
This is when you were out for 72 seconds. You were having an experience, sort of a near-death experience. You mean?
It was the Creator said it was a death experience. That I did actually leave my body, and my spiritual self went across that river. So not near death. It's considered in our tribe death experience. That I did journey. Yeah. So when I went to that tree, the Creator met me underneath that tree and talked to me. He says, "You do have a choice here." And he says, "You can go back to where you came from, is back to your earth, or you can go this way." And while I was talking, there was people coming to Earth, people from Earth coming to that land. And there's 7 million of those for the 3.5 years I was there. And one of them is you, of course. One of them was Jacqueline, and there was 7 million other people that some of them already met. Wow. And I talk with you, I talk with Matt, I talk with all the people that would help this journey. And there's a lot of people in that journey that are listening right now that understood this story and understood what I'm talking about.
Wow.
And when that happened, that I met the 7 million, and the Creator came back to me and asked me, he says, there'll be no repercussions of this. If you kept going this way, it would be no problem. If you go this way, he says, you go back to where you came from. And I thought about you and my children and all the people that I went, that I am here for a reason. Yes, it's my choice to come back. So I chose to go back, cross the river back to this earth. And when I did that all my feelings came back, all the dread feelings of hunger and all the stuff that. But when I was when I was over there, I remembered everything. I remembered every answer that I ever asked in this world. I remember everything but most of that's cloaked from us. They cloak it when they come back because there's too much to remember. So when I came back into that hospital room with all the apparatus on me, that I remembered that. That was part of my memory. But I couldn't speak. I couldn't tell anybody. It took me 6 or 7 years just to tell that story. And it was hard because I had to learn how to walk and talk and use the bathroom and breathe and see and hear. And my comprehension of the English language, that I used to be a good writer before then. To this very day, I could not put two words together. I don't know where a period goes. I don't know what exclamation mark, quotes, anything. I don't know, but I could write. I can put words together, but not efficiently.
Right.
And when I came back, there's not one thing to this very day that I have not forgotten of that journey. I still retain it. I still retain all that information.
It's very vivid. It's a very vivid recollection. Like you mentioned, the 7 million souls that you were sort of part of that tribe, if you will, of people here helping to be catalyst and facilitate the awakening of the planet. So you have detailed recollections of those interactions with all of those people?
Everyone.
Wow. So you can literally remember communicating with my soul in that space. Your
spirit, yes, and your two spirit guides.
Wow. That's quite fascinating.
So the people think I have ESP because I can pretty well tell who they are. I don't have ESP. I don't have clairvoyance, but I remember who you are.
Wow.
Yeah. I remember when you were 9. Think about what happened when you were 9. You don't have to tell me, but just think about it. But 9 and 17 May 21st, 7:30. What happened? 7:32 in your life. Write that down. Look what happened that day.
May 21st. I'll write it down and then consider that. May 21st. When I was
evening.
9.
It'd be evening.
7:30.
That's not being ESP. I'm not fishing. That's pretty precise information. So I'm not fishing or doing anything like that. And anybody that I meet, I can do that. That met the 7 million.
Wow. And have you had a lot of, out of those 7 million, okay, have you had a lot of interactions? Like this is our first interaction, right? Since that happened to you all those years ago, have you bumped up against a lot of those 7 million in physicality?
Yes. I'm looking for them right now.
Wow.
Yep.
What a fascinating soul you are. This has been absolutely incredible, David. Thank you for sharing these wonderful stories and wonderful wisdom that you have for the world. For those who want to continue to connect and follow your work, what is the best way to do so? Starteaching.org. Okay.
Yep.
Star teaching teachings with an S.
Yeah, we have a website, and there's a lot of teachings on there. There's YouTube. I have a YouTube channel that you can subscribe to and watch some of the speaks and some of the teachings on there. And there's a lot of stuff that on there that you can link to.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I do have one last question I'd like to leave you with, David. I always. And of course on Facebook, right? Okay. And Star Teachings, if they look for Star Teachings, it'll come up?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Got it. And last question I'd like to leave you with, in 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to David Sanipass?
The meaning of the life is experience what you know.
Wonderful. Short, sweet, and definitely something amazing to ponder. David, thank you so much for the work that you're doing and for connecting here in 3D with you. Is truly a pleasure. And I look forward to hopefully getting the opportunity to do so in person at some point.
I'm very honored to share these teachings. And thank you this afternoon for having me here. And I look forward to meeting you. And I will.
Well, everyone, that concludes this week's interview episode. If you have enjoyed this positive download from our hearts and minds to yours, please take a minute, give us a rating or review on iTunes. Since iTunes is the holy grail of all things podcasting, your good reviews help us to reach more listeners. Also, we would be extremely appreciative if you would tell your friends and family about the show. Our sincere intent with the Positive Head podcast is to spread positivity to the world. Because we're selfish, quite honestly. I say that jokingly, but really only halfway joking. I'm referring to the good kind of selfish based on the knowing that we all get what we give in this life, because when we give, we're actually always giving to extensions of self, since we're all really one in the same consciousness, just in different bodies. So if you want to be a good selfish along with us by helping to spread the positivity, by all means, please proceed to shout about the Positive Head podcast from your rooftop. Otherwise, as you continue on your fabulous journey in this 3D reality, be sure to remember this. As long as you ain't dead, you're already positive ahead. Journey well, everyone, and thank you for being.